Hello and welcome to my channel where we discuss the Power Platform. Today's video is going to look at Power Automate and some of the tips and tricks I have for using Power Automate that I wish someone had told me before I used Power Automate myself. So I'm going to just refer to this list very quickly, and what it's actually showing is the parts that I'm going to be going through. So this won't make a huge lot of sense until we get into some of these step by step, but it's just a good reference point for if you're thinking, what am I going to be covering in this video? So the first tip I have there is actually you should be using this activity. So we're just going to open up a Power Automate right here. Like this. Just move this out the screen. So the first tip there is use your activity to look at your failures. So what this is if we go into this cog on Power Automate and then go into activity, we can actually see all activity, so which flows have run, successful runs, notifications, and failures. So the reason I find this really useful is that sometimes flows may not have run and your end users, they don't really understand what's going on. Maybe it's happening to power up and they don't know that the flow has failed. Now, we do get a weekly summary from Power Automate showing us a summary of all those flows which have failed, but that might be too late. So actually coming into here very quickly is a good way of seeing which flows have failed without actually having to go into the run history of each flow. That's tip number one. Tip number two is you've actually got this flow connector, which I'll explain what that means because that's my name for it. But say if I create from template and I, for example, Power Apps button, and this is really useful for when you've got lots of different flows in your environment. Is there are actually some flows that you can run to actually get information about flows. So for example, I've got this one, which is list my flows. So actually, I might just want to know what flows I have within Power Apps. And this is really useful using this one to actually figure those out. And I'm going to select my environment. So my authentication failed there, so I'm not going to go through exactly why. But the idea is that you can list your flows. There are some other ones. I'm really expecting this to work here. I can just do asking Power Apps for now, just to leave it like that. Here's tip number two. Now, tip number three is name your flow before you add it to Power Apps. This is probably one of my biggest bugbears of using Power Automate and Power Apps together. Name it first, right? And the reason for that is when we start using it in our Power App, quite often, if we come back here and rename it to something else, Power Apps will actually still refer to it as the first name, which may actually be Power Apps button if you didn't rename it. So that's tip number three. Okay. The next tip is whenever you're building out a flow, fill out each step at a time and just test between the different ones. So this is so if I just pick up one of my other flows actually, just to show what I mean, is we've got this SQL query flow. Now, what I could do is I'm just going to get rid of this and put it back in a second once it's loaded. Okay, I'll just delete this step. So if I want to figure out what my response will be, I'm actually going to run this step first. So this step is just executing a SQL query. I'm going to run this step first to see what happens. So don't try and build your flow out in one go. Build it out bit by bit. And this will actually allow you to troubleshoot between each of the steps. So that's tip number four. Okay. Tip number five, and this is more of a Power Apps tip, is, for example, in this one. So I'm just going to leave that one here and pick another one up, which may have a response. So I've got this flow here, which executes a SQL query and then gives us a response. Okay. Now, if this response were to change, so in this particular one, I'm bringing back so I'm using this select statement. Now, if I'm going to bring back something else, and I'm using that within my Power App, one of the things you need to do, so I'm just going to open up that Power App, and I'm going to change my response. You need to delete and add. You need to delete, so just open this up here. You need to delete the flow and add it back in. Okay, that's another pitfall I found myself in. So for example, maybe I want to add in another field, maybe the, as for example, the owning org structure or something like that, and then I add it in here. Power Apps will not automatically pick up this response. So what you need to do is actually remove that flow and add it back in. So in this particular example, this is a Power App in which I have, there's a flow here, for example. I would remove this and add it back in if my response is changing. Okay. And the very last tip I have here is to use templates. So there are a lot of great templates available for us to use within Power Automate. And the way we access those is if we go to my flows and then new, create from template, and you're going to see a lot of different ways in which you can really speed up that flow creation process. I hope you enjoyed that. That was just a very quick video. I just wanted to kind of show you some of my tips and things that I wish someone had told me when I was using Power Automate for the first time. Hit the subscribe button below if you like what you see. Thank you.